We'll begin now so that we can be on time. Good afternoon, everybody who's joined us. And on behalf of the Spanish Chamber of Commerce in the UK, welcome to our webinar, which is actually the first one we're holding back after the summer break. And today's webinar is on the topic of a guide to reducing your company's IT costs. Which we're delighted to be holding in partnership with Vector ITC, which is a soft tech company, and Vector members of the Spanish Chamber of Commerce. So today we are delighted to be joined by Jose Antonio Diaz Infante, who is Softech North America's Head of Financial Services. So just to begin a little about Jose Antonio. So with over 20 years of industry experience, he is always looking to create synergies and value generation opportunities between financial services and insurance companies. Jose Antonio's main interests and expertise include digital trends, fintech, outsourcing models, and business strategies. We're also going to be joined today by Javier Alvarez, who is the International Business Director of the EMEA region of Vector ITC, and will also be contributing to today's session. We want today to be really interactive, so if you have any questions, please get involved and write them in. So there's two options for doing that. If you look at the bottom of your screens now, you can see the Q&A function or the chat function. So please just write them in. You can either write into us during Jose Antonio's presentation, or after that at the end, we're going to have plenty of time for Q&A as well. So please do write in with your opinions or your experience or your questions. We'd like to hear from you a lot. Well, without further ado, I'll hand over to you, Jose Antonio.
Thank you, Hannah. You can see me, right?
Yeah, can see you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for the Spanish Chamber of Commerce to invite Softech and Vector for this interesting conversation. I have a lot of fondness of the UK. I worked there for many years, and I studied in Manchester, and I work in London. So I'm happy to be here. So they asked me and Javier to go through the webinar and trying to look at what we could share with you. And I think there's going to be three things that are going to be shared in this webinar. Ideally, how to maximize the use of technology and how to make sure that there's very challenging times nowadays because of the situation with the COVID. So we're going to give you some examples of how some companies have been adapting and using technology to go through these challenging times, and how to look at the business processes by using technology, and then how there's a lot of different factors and combination of different factors to be able to reduce cost in the long term. And it's not only about cost, it's also about revenue growth, as we can see. So just before I go to a theoretical slides, I'm just going to go very quickly on who is Softech and who is Vector, right? So most of you may have heard of Vector, because Vector is mostly in Europe, but Softech is a global solution provider starting in the 1980s when there was all this push of having technology in the US and in India. We came as an alternative solution and we coined the term nearshore. You have heard the term offshore, which means somewhere outside on-site. Nearshore means that it's close to you. So in this case, for the US, which is where I'm located, we provide services from Mexico, and we have different locations in Mexico serving the US. In Latin America, we have a lot of different locations, mainly in Brazil and Argentina. And for EMEA, we usually use Spain, our Spain centers, to serve the UK market. And basically that's what we do, and we've been doing for many years for different clients. Private company with more than 400 clients, and it's built around the human and the talent that we have within Softech. So we'll go through more specific different examples of how we do things and how we like to do things, but it's mostly to become agile and flexible and help out and make sure that we deliver value for our customers. And that's what Softech does. Softech, especially in the EMEA region, has headquarters in Madrid and in Galicia, but it's been serving the UK for a long time, especially for different industries. When we look at Vector, Vector is one of the integrations and an acquisition that Softech did in the past couple of years. And it's a very interesting company specialized mostly in digital services. They have different products for different industries, and they also have different solutions that are aimed mostly at transformation. And that's going to be one of the topics that we have today. Similar to Softech, they complement each other. They have a very strong presence in Europe. And what I really like about Vector is that they have what they call the digital DNA, which is focusing on innovation, focusing on what they do and how to transform. And they have different subdivisions that we can talk more about it, but Javier can tell us more about a couple of examples of Vector. So that was just a brief overview of the two companies. I hope you can continue the conversations with us by LinkedIn. But let's just go through the topic of today, right? So how do we reduce IT costs? We need to figure out first. Yeah, sorry, Javier, you wanted to say something?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Thank you. So we live in a different time, right? We live in what we now being called the low-touch economy, and that if that's the first time you hear about this term, the low-touch economy refers to the way businesses across the globe have been forced to operate in order to succeed as a result of the COVID-19. And I think personally, we have been changing and adapting and being flexible. We have the kids upstairs doing virtual schooling. We have everybody in the house. We cannot go out. Every country has its own differences, but this has also has created shifts in our personal lives, but also in our professional lives. So we've been in the economy has changed, right? And there's new habits, new regulations. There's things that we can do, things that we used to do that we cannot do anymore. And there's a lot of things that have been changing. So what we call, and this is some research that we did, which is called, there's a lot of shifts. There's things that are pandemic induced and they're pandemic accelerated. And today we're gonna talk a little bit about those and how they help you. Pandemic induced, and I'll go into those, is things that have, were not there before. And now because of the COVID and the pandemic are there, and they may become more. For example, there's a lot of now consciousness about being fit, about eating well, about doing exercise. There's what we call well-being centric lifestyles, right? There's a lot of travel anxiety. A lot of people don't want to travel, and that's bringing a lot of opportunities or weaknesses for different companies. There's a lot of things about face-to-face interactions, but now it's on a digital, similar to what we're doing now. We're doing an interaction by Zoom. I hope it's valuable. But then there's also shifts that are accelerated because of the pandemic, right? So there was a lot of companies that were doing digital transformation, but because of COVID, this has accelerated, right? So every plan that they had, which was like, okay, let's create a contact center. Let's do a digital first sale. There's things that have been accelerated because we'll give you an example today of a company that had to go digital because that was the only way to have revenue coming in. So these things have been changing what we do, and we need to become better at understanding the low touch economy. Like I mentioned, this COVID will be there, and it's going to be one of the things that we have to adapt. They mentioned in this paper that the full recovery would take at least 2 years. And we cannot wait to adapt and to be flexible. You will see here, like I mentioned, Lemonade is a US-based startup which just came out on an IPO in the US. Everything they do is insurance, but they do everything digital. It's a startup that everything is digital, and they have gone through digital acquisition, digital claim management, and you don't have to see anyone. And that's a digital first sales example. We have seen talked about well-being. We know about Peloton. We know about everything of eating right and how we can become better. And ideally, COVID is less impactful if you are eating well and if you're doing exercise, right? And because of that, there's a rise of telemedicine. We've seen in Spain and in England and in the US how different companies have changed the way that the doctors help us, right? Teladoc example, how you can do virtual sessions with your doctor without being in front of them, right? And then travel anxiety, right? All of us, I used to travel a lot. I haven't traveled anymore, but now there's a lot of apps and a lot of digital apps that are being done, in this case by insurance companies or by travel companies, to make sure that people can have more information at their hands by using technology. And the last but not least is flexibility is key. In this example close to you guys, the Bupa UK services, they offer healthcare clients access to personal onlines where they have this flexibility and they can tailor the different offerings from Bupa. And as we know, Bupa is huge in the UK, so it's something that they had to evolve in order to better serve their clients. So again, we have these shifts that are coming into our lives, professional and personal, and we need to make sure that we know how to react to them. And today, one of the questions and the solutions that we have is that we have to, in order to succeed, we have to, in our opinion, is we have to focus on 3 things, right? Well, focus on 2 things, and we'll give you some case studies that go into those things, right? The first topic which we're going to talk about is we need to become a better version of ourselves a better version personally and a better version of professional. We need to evolve the mindset, and we need to think about different things. If we were always thinking of like that, we need to evolve and change differently. And secondly, we have to focus on the right stuff, right? Because time is limited, and now we need to make sure that we're focusing on the right stuff. And in this case, we're going to talk about technology. I know that we're around 50 different companies here with different industries, so most of the examples are going to be generalized. I would like to go if I want to go into deep vertical, I will let you know, but today, because I don't know the audience too much, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a general overview. So what does change our mindsets, evolution of mindset? So we all know that as people, we have beliefs and we have behaviors, and the beliefs drive behaviors. So we need to evolve and change. If we look professionally, a lot of the companies have to focus on how to save costs, but not only save costs, we have to change the way that we're bringing revenue into the company because of the COVID. So focus on revenue growth as well, not only the cost savings. So we'll give you an example of how to do that I hope you can apply to your company. Number two, customers, and we just mentioned the behaviors and the way that the customers are buying things from us, products and services, has changed and is changing and evolving. So we need to continue focusing on those customer journeys. What are the touch points? How are the customers? What type of customers are working with us? How are they using technology? And try to work on value generation. Put the customer always there and looking at the process and see what happens, how to become flexible. So we're gonna go into an example in the next slide of what is the customer experience and how do we use technology. And lastly, we need to, when we look at the mindsets, we've been looking and always been working, and I'll say always, but we used to work with a top-down execution. I'll do what my boss says. I'll do what the strategy says. I'll do what someone tells me what to do. Today, we have to be more coordinated. We need to make sure that we could work as a team, and then we can voice our opinion. And again, some companies might work, some people don't work, but this has evolved. We need to become more coordinated. We used to do more of a command and control, which was, okay, we're gonna do this and this, then we're gonna review it, and then this is what I'm gonna do again, and this was a plan, right? Now we need to make sure that it's a transformational. We do something, we react, we see if it's coming, and then we move forward, do a check to see the customers, check the products, and then we transform again. In the US, we call it agile development when we talk about technology, which is constantly producing things. And then as a company, we used to look at the numbers, right? It was an out-of-focus view, which was looking at numbers and looking at the sales, looking at the cost, looking at the margins. But today, we mostly have to focus also on the numbers, but more than that, also on the product, on the delivery. Because if we don't have a correct product or service, the people are not going to come back to us. And then there's not a lot of loyalty depending on the industry. So we need to make sure that we focus on the customers and on the product, and then the revenue and the numbers will come as a result of that. Okay. If there's any questions, again, I'll let you know, just go ahead and I would like to have this interaction. So have any questions, go ahead and send it through the chat and we'll get to it. Let me move towards the customer journey, and I'll give you an example of, in this case, this is going to be an insurance example, and this is a customer journey of buying insurance, right? And here you see three buckets: acquisition, retention, and cross-selling and upselling. And you will see different processes. When you buy an insurance, you explore the insurance options, then you buy it, the insurance. It could be life insurance, house insurance, health insurance. But then as a company, I need to see these processes and understand, okay, what are the processes that I need to change, code, look at the technology to be able to give options to this customer. So this customer wants to acquire an insurance, then what are the workflows that he's going to go through in order to make the purchase decision? What are the clauses that I have to go through? Then once he becomes a customer, I need to have retention strategies, right? Because again, especially in insurance, you go to the best value. Let's call it like that, right? So, but as a customers, these customers are going to have to pay invoices. They're going to make changes to their claims. They're going to do claim management. They're going to make changes to their policies. We will have changes on the pricing. And then if they really like us, they're going to do a renewal, right? So all these sub processes are there for us to understand in my product and in my service, what are the things that I need to change? And once I have him as a customer of life insurance, maybe I can do some cross-selling, and then I can give him another insurance of a different type. So what this example is giving you is that all these different processes, if I understand the customer journey, I will understand then the touch points that go in that example. And then I can use technology, which is in the bottom, which I can do automation. I can, in this case, I could do some IoT, Internet of Things, to be changing some and measure more things. I can do a lot of analytics on any of these processes, and I can do any artificial intelligence on trying to learn processes and understanding the data and making behaviors and changes because of that. So this is just a very brief example of how we do and how you should be able to look at your industry, your product, your service, do a visual understanding of who is interacting with my processes and how, and then understanding what technology can do for each of these processes. Okay, so I'll move on, see if there's any questions for that, but this is an example of how we look at the customer journey. Now, we spoke about evolving our mindset, which is becoming a better version of ourselves, but we also have to, if we don't focus on the right stuff, then that's it might not work. So this is when we're going to talk about cost savings and technology a little bit more on these slides. So we believe that when you talk about technology, there's three things that you need to focus, and let's focus on the right stuff. We have the transform, build, and run. And in this case, the thing that most companies do every day is running technology. This means supporting systems, supporting applications, supporting infrastructure. And this is what we call the run. This is where you look at service levels. This is where you look at what you do with what you have. And most of the time, this run bucket will have close to 80, if not 90% of the budget that is allocated, and most of the costs will be there. And this will include licensing, vendor, staffing, a lot of costs that are there to be able to, and we call it I was working in banks, is run the bank, right? And then the other side, we call run the bank and build the bank or transform the bank. When we talk about building, is that bucket is the amount of money that you have allocated to be able to create new things, right? So anything, this would be where innovation works. This will be where things that a customer is looking for, and I will have some money to work on. And the problem is, if I have a lot of money spent on running the bank or running the operations, I won't be able to build a lot of stuff. So somehow I need to make sure that the running has some savings, so I can spend more in the other two buckets. And the third one is transform, which is basically looking at, okay, if this is what I have, I need to evolve and come to the next and make it to the next level. So in this case, would be looking at applications that are legacy, and then how do you evolve them to become better with the better technology? And once you have them with a better technology, how do I produce some saving by maybe moving them to the cloud? So in this case, it would be moving them through a innovation process and then transform. So, and again here, when we look at cost savings, I would encourage you to look at and maybe ask your peers, do you even know how much you're spending on transforming your products, your services? Do you even know, have you been able to measure? And most likely you do, because most likely there's a budget that you allocate to the building, right? And is that building, if you compare that to the past couple of years, has that grown, or is that has been always the same? So this is important for you to understand that this is something, questions that you have to ask yourself, and understanding how you can change, because these things have and will be impacted on the way that how we manage them, right? So this is, if we focus on the right stuff, ideally the running will, the expenditure that we have on running will be stabilized. So will become from high, will go down, and they will be stable. And then we can use that money to be either transforming or building processes. So we'll go more into that detail. Visually, how does that look in an example? And let me move this along. This is talking about the evolution, and this is just a visual example. If we look at a digital vision and models of transformation, you can have a digital vision here, which will make sure that you have some digital foundations that you have to achieve, which will allow you to look at a customer experience in order to look at how to transform digitally, which will then allow you to create a digital platform which will have continuous delivery, which will be agile. And once you've done that, ideally your business capabilities have been optimized, your processes have been managed correctly, and then you can evolve to the next thing, which will be cognitive automation. What things can you learn from, and what things can you put on the robot so that they can learn from different things, and then make you do less things or focus on the right stuff. And then last thing, become autonomous. So this is again an evolution model of things that we can help you with, but it's something that you have to see, where are you? Where am I? Am I still using Excel? Am I still using papers? Am I still sending invoices by not using workflow? So by yourself, and once you look at the different evolutions, you have to see where are you as a company, and how can a vendor like Softec or Vector can help you to get to the next level. And maybe you cannot jump from a digital foundation to cognitive right now. There's a lot of blocks that have to be put. So that's something that we can definitely talk more later. And again, I'll keep going. And given that I did my studies in Manchester, I'll be still talking as a professor here. But I think these next 3 slides are important. Understanding what is the digitalization journey. And everybody talks about digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation in the same view, but I don't think it is. Like, I think it's definitely you have to have an evolution. So let's talk about the first one. The first one is when we talk about digitization. And digitization is basically how you convert products to a digital format. The easiest example here is companies. I know that we have some law firms here that had signed up. So think about those law firms that have a lot of different processes that are paper-based. So how can you use the technology and maybe do OCR? So how can you make those papers or those processes become and bring them into a workflow so that we can maybe use DocuSign or do something so that everything can move on a digital format, and then you can do imaging solutions. There's different things there, right? So in that digitalization journey, most likely your CIO or your chief of CEO has thought about things of how to become more digital. And this would be the first stage, which is what we call digitization, right? And again, there's a lot of technologies that can help with, but it's mostly about managing documents, managing images using OCR. Then once we do the digitization, then we can talk about digitalization. And the key thing here and the key message here is how to look at the processes. The processes support, or the technology supports processes, or the processes support technology, depending on your view set. But basically, digitization is looking at the business models that you have and seeing what things can you exploit to create digital opportunities. And again, in this summary, you can see things where you can do, look at the processes, and then you can either move them. If there's structure on structure, that will change the way of how you manage them, which means if that means that if they have data that is predictable, then you can use an API or something where you can automate things because it's predictable. But if it's on structure, or if it's something that you cannot really structure in a way so that you can pull things from it, maybe you have to do a different way, right? So here we have BPM, we have APIs, we have different technologies that we can use, RPA, on how to become more digital on the processes. And we're gonna go through an example today of how a company was able to use RPA to evolve in their shared services and back office processes. But again, this is the second layer on how do you create digitalization. And the last level, which is the most mature level, once you've done digitization and digitalization, is what we call digital transformation. And this is what we'll be talking about. How do you restructure the society, but also looking at business, looking at technology, and looking at experience. You cannot do digital transformation if you haven't done the previous two. So it's looking at the experience, looking at someone like Vector, someone like Softec that can help you to get there. Look, you know what? I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. So what does that mean? How close am I to digital transformation? So what we've been doing is we have a lot of different frameworks that we've been using with different clients that can tell you where you are and where do you want to go. And again, this is not something that you do only in technology. You have to talk to the business and you need to talk to the customers. And if you do it in the right way, the business and technology, the business and technology teams are going to be able to change and the change management is going to be very, very easy, because change management, as everybody knows, is one of the hardest things to apply, because it's very easy to say no and it's very difficult to change. So if you have a lot of different promoters in that business transformation, digital transformation, and it goes side by side, then everybody will succeed, right? So again, this, apologies that if it was more a little bit academic, but this was the foundation of, before we get to the case studies, because this will show different states of what we've been able to see with different clients. And the last slide is something that we have been doing in Softec and in Vector on how to capture automation and how to improve those companies that have already evolved and want our help with automation. And again, automation is something that we do. We like to call the automation first strategy, which is basically always think about how can I automate a process? how can I automate a product? And this is something that evolves we were talking about evolving our mindset. This is something that really changes of how we always think about a process or a problem and think about how can I fix that using automation. And that's what we call automation first mindset. So I'm not sure if you guys have been there already where you see a problem and we can fix it by doing this, right? And we have frameworks and we call them FRIDA. And if you remember, FRIDA is one of the most famous Mexican painters. But in this case, FRIDA is an acronym for automation development framework, but it's basically IP, and there's a lot of different technologies and tools and different library of collection of things we have done that can help you. There's a lot of different frameworks or different little tools that we've used for restaurants that we can tell you about later, but it's looking at an automation framework, not only the tools, but also the framework, the processes that support that automation strategy. And then that strategy will have an implementation, which will mean that you will have processes, proven processes that can help you. And then once you have the automation, then we can become and bring some accelerators into the equation. But if you think about automation, is something that wasn't there 3 to 5 years ago. Nowadays, when you talk about infrastructure and we look at server management, you can always think about automation first and say, how can I stop someone waking up in the middle of the night to check if the logs have been running successfully? Well, you put automation, put on a robot, and then you can see a report, and then you look at an exception base, and then you see things that are going wrong, but you don't have to wake up. I remember 15 years ago when I used to wake up to look at a log and turn on my computer to see if that thing ran correctly. We don't need to do that anymore. Technology helps us. And that's, again, thinking about cost saving. This is something that the robots can do for us. And we're going to look at an example of RPA and how that works for us. Okay. I'll stop there before I get to the case studies, is to see if there's any questions before I go to the next slide, which are the case studies. And again, we believe that we are successful because our partners and the companies that we partner with are successful, and they're successful by using technology, and they use Softec and Vector to be able to produce all this digital transformation. So I'll keep going. I don't see any questions there. We'll move them along. But before we get to the case studies, I wanted to present you this slide, and this is talking about application management. And again, there has to be an evolution, like we mentioned before, and I'm going a little bit technical here, and apologies for that. But when we look at application management, think about those applications that you have, and think about how reliable are they. Think about how many times you have to fix them. How many enhancements you have planned, how many things you have to change, how many things the customer doesn't like, how many times a customer is complaining about something that is not working correctly. So when you look at on an agile way and application development, you need to look at continuous delivery. So ideally, if you have something that is very old, ideally you have to think about, can I really replace it with something new, or because of legal implications, that thing has to stay like that, and then I have to put something on top of it. Are these applications aligned to what the business wants to do? So are those applications following the business strategy that the company wants to go? And if they're not, then we have to change them, and then we can help like that. And last but not least, the outcomes. We need to make sure that we understand what these applications are supposed to do, both in business savings and transformational savings plus IT, and then be able to measure that, right? Because at the end of the day, like I told you here, if we understand and we can redirect the run budget to build and transform, then that's when we can really have major savings for us. So again, think about that. And an example of how to do this application management is looking at your application portfolio. So think about all those applications that you have. In this case, I know that we have companies that are from restaurant, and we know we have some companies that are doing textiles. So think about those applications that are there and how you manage them. You can either, if they're legacy applications, which means that they're very old, you can either rehost them, you change them from scratch, you can do improvements to them, you can continue doing enhancements and spend money like that, but they're still going to be old, or you can integrate them and look at the technology that you have available and talk to a partner like Vector or Softec to be able to see what options are there in order to evolve. And that way you're going to be able to reduce the cost. And again, remember, the cost is not going to only be the amount that you spend on server management or infrastructure or applications. There's a lot of other costs that we call the IT total cost of ownership. There's a lot of a white paper from Softec there that explains what does that mean. And that basically means how much are you spending to own those applications. And it also includes your own per people, but it also includes the partners that you're working with. We produced that we produced that paper. We were being challenged about that one of the Asian countries was cheaper than Mexico. So we showed them by using numbers that just taking people to fly to the US from Asia was more expensive than bringing people from Mexico. And in this case, if we're talking about the UK, it might be easier to bring people from Spain to the UK instead of using Asia as a lower cost strategy. So there's all these factors that we're happy to work with you and talk to you about once we talk about the total cost management for your applications, okay? So I'm gonna go through 3 case studies, and then Javier is gonna go through 3 case studies, gonna be very sharp so that we have time for the questions and answers. And the first example, the first case study is gonna be, imagine that you have the third largest cinema complex in the world. Imagine that you have operations in different countries, and you have different people that are visiting you all the time. So you have all these operations, and then COVID happens, and then the cinemas, of course, shut down. So what happens? Then your revenue basically closes. There's no one visiting your company. So this is an example where we work with this company, and we ended up looking, before COVID, we were looking at them on understanding the technology state. And then the difference was that they grew by doing acquisitions and by changing and by evolving. And the way that they had a lot of different technologies. And again, in this case, imagine the technology you can have first to buy the tickets. Number 2, to understand loyalty systems. Number 3, to think about how do you do and purchase the movie rights and things like that. So the cost of maintenance and operations of the systems that they had was very high because they had different technologies and different platforms. So Softec was able to work with them to develop a technology roadmap to be able to rewrite and manage all those different versions of the products that they had. But the most interesting thing about this case study, especially other than the digital transformation journey that we did with them, was because of COVID, they reached out to us to create a new video on demand platform. So the CIO was on a webinar with us, and he was explaining that the business was telling us, okay, I love that we're doing all these things, but how can we bring money into the company? So his answer was, we need to create a new video on demand platform that was not even on the plans. So we worked with them, and then we created, let's call it a Netflix version of their own rights. So now they do have a new video on demand who has been successfully. And again, this is a very successful case of a company that was challenged by COVID, working side by side, the IT team with the business working together, but also then reaching out to a vendor or a supplier to make sure that this is what I want to do. How can you help me get there? And how can you help me get there faster and with lower cost savings, right? So in this case, this was a very interesting journey of how we work with them. And we also helped them to improve their kiosks, improve their technology, that way that they were using the data and looking at also social medias and how they were using the sentiment analysis and understanding that all that data and that was coming in. So there was a lot of transformation for the past couple of years. The CIO of this company has been a great speaker for us when we do our customer event. And it's a very nice story to tell of how you can look at a problem and then you can evolve and have the business and the technology working together. So I think that was very relevant to the discussion today about digital transformation. The next case study, it's about a restaurant, right? And this is a QSR, which is a quick service restaurant, and that's what they call it in the US. And similar to all the restaurants in the world, they were very happy having people coming in, and then COVID happens, right? And then COVID, people cannot go to the restaurants, and then they have to enable all these ways of getting revenue. And in this case was first using technology correctly, and second, being able to get orders by using technology, orders into the restaurant. But before COVID, we worked with them on looking at their point of sales platforms, which was very interesting because you have to integrate different technologies, because you have technologies that are working with partners, which in this example are the partners that give you and that partner with you to deliver the food, or it could be just looking at the loyalty systems, or it could be looking at the menu, most demanded menu items, and looking at the data that you have by looking at just by looking at your menu and the purchases from your customers. But in this case, by having this monitoring platform, they were able to look at what were the most demanded products that they had. And once that COVID happens, we were able to work with them to make sure that the guest journeys, in this case, the guests were able to get the food faster, but they were not errors by doing everything online. So looking at that e-commerce and what we just spoke about, digital first sales and how they get impacted. So again, here, this is a very interesting conversation about how we can help you and how you can look at your own guest journey and how technology is helping you by understanding all this data and how it's being aggregated. So again, this is a very interesting case study that we have. Okay. And the last case study that I'll show to you guys will be, this is a bank. And what they ended up doing, we were looking at business digitization, right? We were looking at digitization. That was the first example that I talked to you about. They had invoice documents in an ERP system, and they wanted to look at those invoices, and they wanted to extract information. And they were still using the manual labor to look at these invoices. So we ended up going with them. They bought this technology called UiPath. Not sure if you have heard it, but basically it's an RPA tool. And they said, we don't know what to do with it, but we just bought it. Please help us. So we ended up working with them and implementing UiPath to be able to do RPA automation and training on understanding the system and making sure that the system knew what were the most common formats and the most common ways of these invoices to come. There were different changes, and then making sure that we can extract all those formats, make them digital, and then from there we can extract and then do the recognition and then process those invoices. And here the main benefit was most of those invoices were not being processed fast enough. So by doing RPA, that was one of the advantages that they have, and that's the results. They were able to do the invoice, automatic invoicing faster. And they also, if you didn't have an invoice and the invoice was not processed, then you couldn't pay those invoices. So that was something that they were able to work. So again, looking at digitization, looking at a tool that we can help out with, and then looking at how that evolves in the customer journey by implementing technology. So I'll stop there. And I would like now to introduce Javier, and Javier to take us to the next couple of slides.
Thanks, Jose, and thanks to everyone for joining us here. It's a pleasure for us to have this time to share with you how we visualize the topic of the meeting today, but also to bring you some examples to being able to land these a little bit more to earth. So I'm going to bring three very quick examples, but I wanted to illustrate also some more points. So yeah, basically, as Jose mentioned before, we are in we've been several years, talking and discussing about digital transformation. Many people having different views. I know that this is a quite a complex topic, and it has got a lot of angles. So I'm going to try to outline here some of the angles, but I believe that really the important thing is to view it from a global standpoint, not to become a digital company. It doesn't mean to look at one or another angle, no, but to have a full view of what you want to do in terms of digitization, right? But I'm going to address some examples with some angles which I believe are important. So the first one has to do with automation, to remove repetitive tasks, but also to provide cognitive automation. So to be able to make some decisions, some smart decisions using automated systems. So in this case, it's a very interesting case. I think that we bring here, which is a private bank in Andorra. This is obviously this is one of the leading wealth management banks in Andorra, targeting clients which are situated in a high stage in terms of capacity of investment. So obviously it's a bank that traditionally has been requiring a lot of physical face-to-face management of the clients. And it's interesting to know that this client came to us because they wanted to be able to handle the relationships, to manage the relationships with these kind of clients using also digital tools, so that the advisors would become, would overview all the process and be there for more value-added tasks. But many of the activities that the client were doing with the support of their advisors and that were not high value added, now they would have omni-channel tools that would allow them to access to information and to be able to make decisions in real time everywhere using these tools. No, it's interesting to know that apparently this is a very traditional space within the bank, and as many people was reluctant about the possibility of digitizing this the relationship with this kind of clients. But if you go ahead, please, Jose. The implementation of this new platform became a great success with a very important level of adoption. So the time spent by the advisors with the clients, it became a much more value added time, while the clients had access to information in a much easier and quicker way, which allowed them to reduce the time to decision by more than 30%, which was very important for them to be more happy with the service that was delivered to them. And at the same time, from the bank standpoint, their advisors were able to also increase their customer base, because they freed a lot of time that was being used, as I mentioned before, in low value added tasks. And now these tasks were automated, and even with more information with these digital tools. No? So this was awarded with several prizes from different organizations, and is now a platform which is very important within the technological landscape of the bank. No? So this is the first point I wanted to outline. So related to automation, as I said before. The second one, if you go ahead, please, Jose, has to do with the omni-channel strategy. You know? So again, everyone's talking about omni-channel strategies for a long time. We certainly believe that digital has come to provide a lot of value, and this has proved true in the past years. But also we believe that there's a very important key to succeeding, which is having the appropriate combination of online and offline support in the provided services. And this is a clear example, no? With one bank in Spain, one of the biggest banks in Spain, they had a process in place to be able to sell mortgages. They had one product which was objectively one of the best products in that range of the financial services, and they had a process in place which was pretty simple, which was an online process, and the customers had to go to the website, fill out a form, and with that form they were booking also an appointment in the branches to be able to complete the process. No. Now, the problem is that they didn't achieve the level of commitment they wanted from their clients with that process. So we worked with them to redefine all the customer journey in this process, so we added to the online part of the journey some tools which basically allow the clients to make calculations online, to make comparisons online, to be able to chat online with agents. And also we provided a customer, a call center that could provide personal advice through many option calls during the online process. No? So finally, this combination of the online part of the process with the physical part of the process allowed us to achieve a big increase, as mentioned in these numbers. So 1,600% increase in leads. The conversion ratios improved by 530%. Even the costs, now getting back to the point of this conversation, the costs of selling a mortgage were reduced by 50% also. No? So these are very important numbers, which also, as you can see, allowed us to bring in a lot of new revenues, which were not getting into the company before. No? So this is one interesting case, we believe, to make you understand a real case where the right combination of online and offline channels can bring a lot of value to the companies. No? And the third aspect that we wanted to show with a real case is, well, this is interesting. This is one of the most important retailers in Spain, which well, the promotions system that they manage, and that most retailers manage in Spain, similar to the French model, is quite complicated. The number of SKUs that this company has is incredibly high. So it's in Spain, basically that's something that saying that when you need something, you go to this retailer and you find it. They virtually have everything. So, and right now, if you add a new complexity level to the equation, which was all the new channels that have been put in place during the past years. So if you wanted to put all these promotions through all those channels for that amount of SKUs, that become almost an impossible problem to resolve in the time windows that they have to make all this processing. No? So basically, we bring this example because in this new era where a lot of new technologies are emerging, you need to be able to put in place a system or a procedure to be able to very quickly be aware of what are the new technologies that are emerging, being able to try them, and in a very quick way, being able to decide whether to adopt them or discard them. No? So basically, in this case, they were bringing their legacies, and they had been evolving, optimizing, doing big investments in infrastructure. So if you go to the next slide, Jose, the best that they could do was to be able to release these promotions and distribute them to the different channels in 6 to 8 hours, no? And that investing huge amounts of money in infrastructures, no? So thinking out of the box, we think it's interesting in these times where a lot of new technologies and new ways of looking at technology problems arise. So we decided to go through a completely different path. We decided to test one new technology based on graph databases. We made a very quick minimum viable product to be able to test this concept. And this concept proved that they could make this process, reducing the time from 6 to 8 hours to 12 minutes, right? So the idea I want to bring to the table is that you need to be able to think out of the box in these times where a lot of people are releasing new ways of doing things using technology. So you need to be able to be aware of them, test them in a very quick way, and decide when they are good for your business or not. No, so this I think is a very relevant case in this respect. No, so I think we still have like 10 more minutes for questions. Maybe if you like, we can open a moment for if anyone has any comments, questions, or whatever, we will be more than happy to try and respond to them.
Yeah, thank you very much both for your presentations. It was really interesting. Yeah, everybody, just please do write in with your questions through the options we mentioned, the chat or the Q&A. Okay, so there's one that we can have to kick us off. In terms of the different kind of strategies that you've been speaking about, Jose Antonio, do you think it is better to wait and see what happens after the coronavirus pandemic, or is it better to kind of go ahead now and start creating and building?
I think that's a good question, and it just depends on the urgency that you have to transform your business, right? So you need to think about who is eating your lunch, and again, if you have any budget allocated to that. So again, the example that we gave today was most likely you're spending some money in technology, in running the infrastructure, the applications, and maybe there's no budget allocating to moving. So the example that we gave about Cinepolis was that, right? If you don't have any revenue coming in, how can you change? So if that company would have just waited and see what happened, most likely they would be bankrupt in a couple of years. So you have to be very flexible and smart enough to understand how technology can help, and extend the hand to a company like Vector and Softec to be able to see how we can help. And we do a lot of assessments, again, where we can help out by doing different assessments on things, so that you can look at that research, and then before you start doing something, and so that can help you to present it to the board. So I think, in my view, is depending on if you want to move fast or slow, it's depending on how much money you can allocate to do that transformation, Hannah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Another question is, so you talked at the beginning of the presentation about the low touch economy. Do you think that many of the changes brought about by this are shifts that are going to be here to stay after the end of the pandemic, or not?
What do you think, Javier? You're mute.
You're on mute, Javier.
Yeah, sorry. No, I definitely think, we definitely think some of the changes are here to stay. In fact, out of all the bad things that have happened to us in the past months, we also have some lessons learned out of the situation we had to live. Some of the things that many people thought that wouldn't be able to be done, we've been able to do them in the past month. So Jose mentioned in his presentation that these days it's very important to work in a more agile way that it used to be time ago. No, so being able to deliver constantly, being able to provide iterative versions of whatever it is that you want to release. And many people thought that that was directly related to working face to face with your clients, with your stakeholders. No, so and for instance, in our case, we as Jose mentioned, for a long time we have worked a lot with a combination of on-site and nearshore services, and we have been trying to make our clients work with this methodology, with this agile methodology from our delivery centers nearshore. And many people thought that was impossible. That was impossible. You need to be talking all the time. You need to be making a lot of group sessions and everything. That's just not going to happen. And you know, in 4 months, we have been able to make more progress than I believe that in years before. No, so I definitely think some of these things are gonna stay here with us for much longer time.
Fair enough. Great. Thank you very much, Javier. Another question we've had from Ricardo is how do you suggest that you can convince an old-fashioned board that it's time to digitalize a company?
I think just point them to the numbers, right? So again, change is difficult. We spoke about it, right? So I would say point them to the numbers and show them success stories. We spoke about a board that likes to see numbers, and if they don't transform, either, like I mentioned, they're gonna become obsolete, or just look at the numbers that can be transformed. Once you do this, or if you save this amount of money on these types of things, then we can use that money to go to do something else. And again, if we look at an old-fashioned board that is used to doing different things, it might be difficult, but if you show them success cases of what we've been doing, and just reach out to us, and we can help you. I don't know, Javier, what do you think?
Well, just building on your argument, I believe that proving the concepts is very important nowadays. No, so many of the solutions we have available to us at these times, we are able to to make very quick proof of concepts that allow these people to understand and to touch in their own businesses how these new technologies or these transformations can help them improve. No, so I think that makes a lot of sense in order to convince them that they need to be open to this kind of changes. No, even if sometimes they are hard to face. No. Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. Great, thanks. Can you talk a bit about partner management and how important vendors are for digital transformation?
Yeah, I think they're very important if they can complement what you do. So again, everybody's good at something, and I believe that if you're trying to do everything with everybody, you're not going to do anything. So I think you need to focus on who's good at doing what. So we showed a couple of examples where we can help, and I think the partner management, if you can extend the hand to people that can help you, we're very willing and willing and open to do it. So just focus on what you're really good at, and we understand technology, we understand innovation and digital, so we can help out with whatever you guys think.
Yeah, and just to set an example, so if you look, for instance, at the finance industry with all the fintech revolution, look at the amount of niche companies that are coming up with very interesting, very specific solutions. So now, what we believe it's very important to work with this network of vendors that provide very specific niche solutions that address specific problems. But then it's very interesting also to renew your platforms, your architectures, to be able to integrate with those solutions. But also it's very important to have a strategy in mind so that at the end of the day, you don't end up having a Lego with a thousand of different things that finally don't work together in the right way. You know? So I think there's a big opportunity ahead with that, but also there's a big challenge, you know, to do it in the right way.
Great, thank you. This is a question we got from Cecilio, and Cecilio asks, what would you say to a client that is reluctant to implement technology due to the fact that their clients are obsessed with privacy and don't want their projects to be in the cloud?
Yeah, there's many options. Again, there's private clouds, public clouds, there's different things, hybrid clouds. So again, let us work with you and understand really the importance of privacy. There's several examples that Javier can tell you of where we've been doing privacy and security projects where we don't have to be even in the same location. We can, especially in EMEA, there's a lot of privacy laws that are different from the UK, especially about data. So I think just let us understand more the problem and give you some solutions. No, Javier?
Yes, no. In fact, I think that this was clearly a big concern some years ago, and so I think the maturity stage we are in at the moment, at least from my standpoint, even the biggest companies and in critical sectors, at this moment they are much more open to implement and again, because as Jose said, there's a number of solutions, hybrid clouds, private, public. There's a lot of solutions, and you can find the best solution for your particular circumstance. No. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. Could you maybe touch on talent management as well?
Yeah, my 2 cents on that, it would be think about your own people, help your people, help them grow, help protect them. A lot of people talk about talent management only looking at attraction of talent, but I think it's the other way. It's about retaining the talent that you have. Take care of your own people, and then more people will come and you'll be attracted. So focus on retaining those talent, keep them, motivate them, and keep them challenged. And if you don't have skills, look for partners so that you can be complemented. So I think that would be my 2 cents on talent management.
From my standpoint, I think this is the big challenge companies in our space have for the next years. No, I think we come from we had some years where there was certain commoditization in terms of professionals working in this sector. But for the past years, with all the transformation that we are also suffering with all the new digital trends coming up. I think that talent is going to be the biggest challenge that we will face in the future. No, completely agree with José Antonio. No, about the how to keep the people to retain the talent is a very difficult challenge that we have ahead and that we need to take care of.
Great. Great. Well, thank you very much, both. That's all the questions that we've had asked to us. So thank you very much. I just wanted to say, everyone, that we are going to be, this has been recorded and live streamed on our YouTube channel, and we're going to be sending around the link after as well. So if you want to watch it again or share it with any of your colleagues or contacts who you think might find it useful, you can do so. I will also in that email pass around Javier and Jose Antonio's email addresses as well. So if you want to contact them and find out any more about Softec or Vector ITC and their services and how they could help you, you can contact them through there as well. But yeah, thank you very much. Javier and Jose Antonio, it was really, really useful and insightful presentation. Oh, I will also be circulating the presentation as well. So you have that, all of that information as well. Would either of you like to add anything else? Or?
No, thank you for the Spanish Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for that, organizing this.
Yeah, well, our pleasure. Thank you very much. And yeah, so you can watch this the video again, and also just like to say, keep an eye on the Spanish Chamber website too for our other upcoming webinars and other online events that we're getting up to. But yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, both. And yeah, bye-bye.
And thanks to everyone. Thank you.
Bye.